Josh Green here for Tungsten Tales. We're here with Sam Gill once again to discuss the last couple of weeks of action in the darting world, most of which has been Premier League action down in Milton Keynes. And we have a two-time TV champion, first-time major champion. Are you counting the Masters as a mate? Well, we're not going to get into that. It's too late, too early. We're not getting into that. But
World Cup, Josh, you're counting the World Cup as a major.
well, three-time major champion then, Jonny Clayton. He's now captured one of the Triple Crown, one of the biggest paydays you can get in World Darts, and that is winning the Premier League. £250,000 for the ferret, Jonny Clayton. Still not sure if he's going to give up his job though. Can't quite remember what he does as a job. I'm sure somebody will remind me in the comments. But fully deserved, I think you'd have to say, Jonny Clayton. He did just sneak into the playoffs, but on that playoff night, he was far and away the best player, and he's now a very, very rich ferret.
He's always the last man, isn't he? Of course, he ended up getting into the Premier League last of all. We could have had the King himself, Merlin King, in the Premier League if it would have gone his way finally. Imagine that. We could have been sitting here saying King was the Premier League champion. In terms of Clayton though, absolutely brilliant. He ended up qualifying last start of the playoffs as well, fourth in that brilliant game against Vandenberg, and then of course he ended up beating Michael van Gerwen. I wouldn't kind of say I saw it coming. I kind of had a bit of an inkling that he might have turned Michael van Gerwen over. If it was going to be the game, it was going to be Michael van Gerwen, Jonny Clayton. He's had a bit of a hoodoo over him, barring in the Premier League as of late, and has constantly showing his brilliant form. And of course we can christen him the 1-2-1 King as well. He's been absolutely brilliant on that target, a really well-deserved winner. And I can't wait to see if he's actually going to give up his job going forward, because I still don't know what he does.
No, Jonny Clayton will not be giving up his job. Of course, the plasterer works for the council in Wales, as you all know. Carmarthenshire, sorry. But yeah, I mean, on that finals night, you've got to defeat the best players throughout the last few weeks, and in defeating Michael van Gerwen, who had been playing pretty well going into finals night. That last chunk of events, plenty of 10 plus averages were thrown. Looking down the list, 98 against Jose, 100 against Peter Wright, 98 against Gary Anderson, and 96.7 against Nathan Aspinall. That's pretty solid darts, if not spectacular, from Michael van Gerwen standards. So to defeat him in good form is a big achievement for Jonny Clayton, although he's done it plenty of times in the last 18 months or so. And then, in my opinion, Jose de Sousa ran out of steam a little in the final. He did have 100 plus average, but he didn't look anything like the player we'd seen in the earlier in the tournament, in the league phase, or even earlier in the night in that cracker of a game against Nathan Aspinall. Jose's time will come. I'm sure he's going to win plenty of TV majors over the next few years, and just a shame that he couldn't quite put it together against Jonny Clayton to produce a classic final.
He ended up doing it in front of the fans as well, which of course was a big thing going into fans returning. Was how was he going to cope with the fans coming back? Of course he was basically already through anyway, in terms of before the fans returned, but he ended up living up to it quite well and became quite a fan's favourite in the Marshall Arena over the past week, including for that remarkable 120 checkout, which of course made Wayne Mardle lose his voice and missed finals night. But yeah, I think his time will come. He's a brilliant player. We end up having, in my opinion, four of the best players in finals night. Of course, you end up having Clayton, who won it, who only just snuck in, de Sousa, who could have won the league if he didn't have a poor start, Michael van Gerwen, who ended up coming into his own towards the end. Is he back? Is always the question I always ask. I'm not 100% as of yet. He hasn't won a title yet, and it's what I said in terms of the last video we did. Of course he won't be back until he actually wins the title. And then of course you had Nathan Aspinall, who kind of snuck in the back door as well. He was brilliant all the way through, and it can only benefit him going into the World Match Play with fans returning. He was absolutely superb and made me eat my words, like I've said before, in terms of me thinking he'd get relegated as well. You know, he ended up in finals night, could have ended up going through to the final in the end, and could even be Premier League champion, you know, at the moment. So, brilliant from the Asp as well. Brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, with Michael, it's not the same Michael as 2013, 2014. Throwing very good darts, but he's not at that sort of unbeatable level almost that he was in 2013, where he won pretty much every title, every tournament he entered. In regards to Nathan Aspinall, what a campaign it's been for him. I'm sure he'll be disappointed not to get to the final or win the trophy even, but from where he was at the start of the year, because he wasn't playing well, and he did look a little bit bereft of confidence, but he's come out, he's proved the doubters wrong, and there were plenty of them. And both of us, I think, said Nathan Aspinall was going to have a tough season, but for him to get in the playoffs and throw some of the best darts, some of the more consistent darts, you'd probably say as well, throughout the last month or two, is a real achievement for Nathan.
Yeah, and in terms of those who just missed out on the top four as well, we of course had Dimitri Van den Berg, who people have kind of forgot through all the furrow of finals now. Of course, we had that top four, but then you had Van den Berg who only just missed out and was absolutely brilliant throughout his debut campaign. He'll come again. He was one who I didn't think could potentially suit the Premier League. A bit like Aspinall this year. I kind of had them two down as a bit of, and De Souza even in terms of how he benefited. We had crowds back, but yeah, a word on Van den Berg. He was absolutely superb and could, like Clayton, be champion because he can do it all on one night. In terms of De Souza and kind of running out of gas, it's a bit like a European tour, really. I kind of liken it to. He was on second and then he was on 20 minutes afterwards, and it always seems to be the big players. A lot of the time it's Michael van Gerwen who's always on first, which is kind of a point that's been touched on previously by James Wade as of late in terms of him getting quote unquote special treatment in that regard. I don't think it's that, but you know, he kind of just ran out of gas as such. Of course, with Clayton, he had probably about 45 minutes to an hour to prepare. In terms of the season, he probably only had about 20 or 30 minutes, and he probably just ran out of gas at the end of it. Of course, with Gary Anderson, Peter Wright, and James Wade, three big names that missed out on finals night. Wright, of course, showed some good form towards the end, and he made it to finals night. Anderson showed some form as well, as did Wade, and all three of them could have ended up in finals night in the end, and ended up having semi-decent campaigns in the end in terms of not making finals night, but still performing well throughout the Premier League, especially when fans returned in some of the cases, mostly Wright at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think Peter Wright showed some real signs that we're starting to see a little bit more from him. Obviously a player that really struggled with no fans being in the building, but from what we saw over those 4 nights, he was very, very good. Through some good darts, through consistent darts, through a similar set. It wasn't the same set, but it was a very similar set on all 4 nights. So that's something, a positive that Peter Wright can take from this. But overall, great to see the darts back on the telly. Great to see fans back in the arena. And I've got to say, over the 4 nights I was there, absolutely stunning. The difference they made was absolutely unbelievable. And I can't wait to welcome back to a venue like the Winter Gardens, or even a European tour in the months to come, if you've got your fingers crossed. Definitely at the end of the year, we're going to be seeing more fans. So can't wait to see them back for the big nights in the darts.
Especially at the World Match Play, of course, it's quite a small attendance for that, but it's going to be so vociferous in there on that opening night. Whoever plays, whether that's Raymond van Barneveld, who he qualifies in the Super Series, or Michael van Gerwen, or of course the defending champion himself, Dimitri Van den Berg, who he ends up opening the tournament. You know, it's going to be brilliant, and we end up seeing how much the fans miss it, pundits, media like me and yourself. How much we miss it in terms of just an atmosphere being there instead of just being an empty shell of its former self, and kind of you end up seeing, like I said, in terms of Peter Wright, Nathan Aspinall, Michael van Gerwen. He ended up playing well towards the back end. Of course, he ended up tasting that early defeat to Nathan Aspinall, where he wasn't kind of used to the crowd again, and Aspinall kind of thrived on it. But, you know, it's got to be those sort of players that you've got to think of in terms of the World Match Play, compared to somebody like Gerwyn Price, who hasn't touched a crowd since we ended up having German events like the World Series, European Championships, when of course we only had a few hundred in towards the back end of last year. It kind of depends how he's going to deal with it now, because all these players are going to be at an advantage, like sort of Van Gerwen, Aspinall, Wright, Anderson, Wade, Clayton. Even he could be he could be a 3-time major champion in a year, even if you think of it. Considering what form he's in, it's not past the realm of possibility that we could see Jonny Clayton as a Masters, World Cup, Premier League, and World Match Play champion by July. Imagine that.
You never know. You never know. We certainly wish the best for Jonny Clayton, a fantastic bloke, and somebody who was really, really good to the media throughout the week. So we wish Jonny all the best.